Hey guys, you're Mike here today with my first deck profile for Skybound Dragons, and what better way to kick it off than with a literal Dragoncraft deck profile. So as you can see, Skybound Dragons has been a pretty good expansion for me. I was able to achieve and maintain the diamond rank for 85% of the climb to Grandmaster, which I think is pretty good. So I did want to make a few changes during my climb, but because I just wanted to see how it fully performed and I wanted to get Grandmaster first, I actually only used one deck list, which I will feature in today's video, but I will also show you the improved deck list, which I made after I hit Grandmaster. So I am currently on a 7 win streak in ranked, and I managed to achieve the epic rating, so that's 1658 elo. I decided to make this video because I am going to be pretty busy over the next few weeks with various different tournaments, so I wanted to make sure that I could put out some content for you guys. I really do think that this is capable of climbing to a higher rank, and I might even give you guys some updates basically when I have time, and if I get to, legendary or beyond or whatever. But as of right now, I think the deck list I've cooked up is pretty damn good, so I hope you guys enjoy. So the deck you can see on the screen right now is the deck that I used to climb to Grandmaster in the first place, and so I did net deck this from a Japanese player around the first few days of the expansion, and it did work for me throughout the majority of the climb, but I did realize that throughout the latter half of the climb, it was becoming a lot more difficult to close out the games in terms of opponents' decks being more refined, the mashups being a bit worse, and so although I used this deck list for the entirety of the climb to Grandmaster, I did end up making some changes. But I'll go through this deck list first, and then I'll tell you guys what I changed and why I changed it. So first of all, the new card that we added is Lyria Skydestined. So the 2 play point 1/1 with Barrier, and the main reason you play this card is because on Enhanced 8, you only play 1 play point, right, in order to tutor your deck for a follower that costs 7 or more. And so this is very effective in terms of making your deck more consistent, right? Because you only run so many high-ends, so Garyu, Azura Frit, Genesis Dragon, Wilness, right? So you kind of already know the kind of cards that you can pull. And so you'll often be at the 8 play point because you're ramping a lot. And so basically you get a free 1/1 body with Barrier, and then you also get to make your deck a lot more consistent, right? And then also against certain decks, like for example, Soulcraft, you can just curve this out in turn 2. And so this will contest a lot of things. So basically, they have a 2/1, for instance, right? And it's kind of hard for them to deal with. They don't really want to play Volse on this, and if they do play Volse on one of your other cards, then you can trade this in. So there's a few other kind of interactions that you can have against these types of board-dependent decks. So it's very sticky and hard for people to deal with, and sometimes you do just need to protect that early game health, right? So Lyria, versatile and strong card. Next up, we've got 3 copies of Phylene. So again, this is just a staple card, as you guys already know. So basically, it's great on turn 2 because it's got Bane. And so there's a lot of decks in the current meta. Soulcraft is an example where if they play Octress, right, you need this card to trade into it. And so this kind of deters people from being able to play exactly what they want. Same thing for decks like Puppetcraft, right? Like basically you play Phylene and then all of a sudden they can't easily play the 3 play point 3/3, right? They actually have to expend something like their 2/1 and then like Enhanced Puppet. And then that basically means you take less damage overall. So that's one example. And then of course, when you're on Overflow, you get Whitefrost Whisper. So against various decks, you can either use that to AoE clear or you can use that to freeze a hand. So obviously, there's a lot to be said about Phylene, but let's just leave it here. It's a great staple card. You're going to be using it a lot. Next up, we've got Call of the Megalorca. So this is just your way of getting the 2/2 rush. And so effectively, this helps you protect your health total early game. And then Overflow, you can play this to search another copy of it. And so you get a bit of an engine going here. So it's probably one of the best 2-drop followers in the game, even though it's a spell. So we run 3 copies. Next, we have 3 copies of Liu Feng Golden Award. So this is just our typical ramp option. Not much else to be said. After the buff, it's basically an essential 3 of. 3 copies of Ocean Rider. So basically, this is one of the best 3-drops in the game. Basically, you can play this to clear one of their 2-drops, and then you have the 1/1 left over. And so often you'll get chip damage from Ocean Rider when you're playing this on turn 3. In addition, it also gets stronger in Overflow, so getting 2/2/2s is very, very strong. So of course, we run 3 copies. Next up, we've got 3 copies of Dragon Signs. So this is just a typical ramp. Of course, you run 3 copies in a ramp deck. And then we had 3 copies of Grand Digita Valiant Skyfarers. So I did end up cutting this card into my next iteration of the list, but stay tuned for the explanation on why. But basically, the reason why we played this card in the first place is it's a 4 play point card, 3/2, decent stats. You can draw 2 cards if they don't have a board, or you can use the first effect to deal 5 damage to random enemy follower, right? So overall, this card was fairly strong when I was playing it. And I think the meta was a bit slower, a bit more forgiving. And so, you even had opportunities to use the Skybound artifact to get the free evolve. So overall, when things go well, when the meta's a bit slower, it's pretty good. But I think it's a little bit, how can I say, inconsistent. So I'll explain that in the next, segment of the video. And so the next one is 3 copies of Gamu. So again, this card is almost a staple in Dragon. Basically, helps you clear the board, maintain it. Also, you can enhance it to get Storm, and often you will get lethal with this card. And then on top of that, it also combos with Azure Thread. So basically this card is, you Super Evo, you do 6 damage. You have Galmu Crest active, you do 1 damage more for each Galmu 0 playpoint spell you have. So you're really strong on 1 copy of this. It's your way of clearing every board in the game pretty much, while dealing damage to face. Alternatively, when they're trying to ward up, you can use this to end the game instead. So next up, we've got Zoe, Ally of the World. So this card is our new ramp option from the new set. So Fanfare, gain 1 max playpoint. So effectively, going from 5 to 7 is a really important threshold, because usually 6 play points is your weakest turn anyway, so being able to skip that is incredibly strong for the Dragon deck. In addition, you've got Enhanced 10, Give this Follow Storm, so you can use that for lethal. Also, it comes with the drawback that basically your leader's max HP goes to 1, but you can't take damage at the start of your next turn. Right, so this is useful against decks like Soulcraft, where they can't really ward or heal very much, which means that you're basically extending your reach by 5, while sealing off their ability to kill you. So overall, this card is extremely good, definitely 3 copies in my opinion. We are also running 3 copies of Fortes, so of course Storm and Intimidate in the first set, so we're running Storm, Ramp Dragons, so of course we run 3 copies of this. Next up, we have 3 copies of Wilderness Flame Personified, so this was very underrated when people were looking at this during the card reveal season, but I always thought that this card was good, and I am on record saying so. So effectively 7 playpoint, 8/6, Intimidate on Fanfare, select an enemy follower on the field and deal 8 damage, evolve, do that again to another enemy follower. So this card is really, really strong for a number of reasons, right? The first one is basically, imagine you ramp on turn 3, and then you ramp again on 5, and so next you can play Wilderness, right? So you'll have taken a lot of damage, but you'll be so accelerated that you can clear the entire enemy board with an Evo, and then your opponent will be too far behind on play points in order to answer this effectively, right? So a common way to answer this card would be something along the lines of, let's just say Odin, right? But that costs 7 play points, and you might just be on 7 play points, while they're stuck on like 5 or 6 play points, right? Which means that they don't have an efficient way to clear this, which means that sometimes it just lives. And so even if you take like 7 damage from the enemy because you ramped early game, now they're taking 10, and because you're a Storm Ramp Dragon deck, basically you're at the advantage, right? And so effectively what this card really just says is like, clear the enemy's board, if they can't answer Wilderness, they lose the game. And I think that is a pretty strong effect. We also run 3 copies of Gary, Fabled Dragonkin, so basically this is our main Super Evo target, so effectively if they have a board, you play this, you clear the board, and you hit their face for 4, including the 1 damage ping, so 5 damage overall. And so this is very, very strong. If they can't clear Gary, again, it's similar to Wilderness, right, where if they can't clear everything, they probably lose the game on the next turn. And then we have 1 copy of Azure Thread, 2 copies of Azure Thread, so basically this card's effect is, you basically do 2 damage to all followers, including yourself. It basically pings the enemy leader for 6 if you Super Evo it, plus any additional Galmus or playpoint stores that you have. So this card is very, very strong in terms of clearing every board in the game and also securing lethal, even if they have a bunch of wards. So 2 copies of this card. And then finally 2 copies of Genesis Dragon. So it's just your huge kind of Super Evo enemy face, 12 damage. And I think at the time when I was playing this deck, a lot of people weren't really expecting or respecting this in general. So basically 12 damage, a lot of people were just like, yeah, they won't have it, and then 12 damage, bam, we just automatically win. So of course Genesis Dragon is very strong, and so this was the deck list I played in order to get Grandmaster in the first place, and eventually I switched up the deck list. And so this is a deck list I used after I hit Grandmaster. So I'm currently on a 7 win streak in Grandmaster with this, and so I just managed to hit epic rank, and so that win streak is still ongoing, guys, so I could probably climb even more of this. And I wouldn't be surprised if I could hit beyond, but I am actually quite busy over the next few weeks. I have a bunch of tournaments I need to practice for, but I'll keep you guys updated because I play Shadowverse casually, right? And so basically, I'll do my dailies, and then hopefully in the course of doing those dailies, I'll climb some more. So the reason I changed this deck list up is obviously I was learning kind of the ins and outs of dragons and the weaknesses and the strengths. And one of the things I realized was that this deck was really, really bad against Soulcraft, like practically unwinnable, right? Like the other matchups were all fine, like I was having like very positive win rates against them, but then when I ran to Sword, I was like, damn, I just lose, right? And then occasionally I'd run into Puppets, and then they just get the curve. Basically, whether or not our big Puppets would just be dependent on if they had Sway on turn 5. And if they didn't, it was smooth sailing. If they did, it was very rough, right? And then afterwards, people started playing the Control Portal deck, which was also difficult for the other build to deal with because we weren't able to press our advantage fast enough before they were able to heal and clear our board every turn. And once they do that, it's pretty much game over, right? So with that in mind, I made a number of changes, okay? So first of all, you can see the high-end pool. So I have changed it. I run 1 copy of Neptune, right? And I don't want to run more than 1 copy. I just want to play 1 copy against Puppet and Sword. No more, right? I only want to run 1. because if I draw a second copy, I don't have time to play it. It doesn't do that much, to be honest. I don't want to burn Super Evos on more than one of these. I don't even want to drop a Super Evo on one of these against some matchups either, right? And so I don't want to dilute the pool when it comes to Lyria, but one copy only. And this has a huge implication as Soulcraft, in my opinion. Basically, it means you can take chip damage and not feel like you've automatically lost the game right away. It buys you one turn, and one turn is all you really need to win against Soulcraft. So one copy of Neptune. In addition, we cut a Zerofrit down to one copy. And again, the reason I did this is because after playing this deck for a while, I realized, hey, I'm never playing more than like one Zerofrit and feeling good about it, right? Maximum, I only play one copy of it, and sometimes it feels really great. So one copy it is, right? I don't want to run two. You just need a Super Evo, and the deck already has so many Super Evo targets, right? So one copy of this, one copy of this. And basically, if you draw one, you can kind of play around it, and you can know that you won't hit it again off Lyria, right? 2 copies of Willness. So basically, originally we're running 3 copies. Now we run 2, right? And the reason I do this is because, number one, we have another stabilizer, which is Neptune. So basically, if it feels a similar role to that. Number 2, Willness is one of those cards where you only really want to draw 2 copies of this. You never really want to draw 3, right? Because effectively, the longer the game goes, and especially if you're playing against decks that run Odin, basically, if you ramp early and you play your first 2 Willnesses, okay, great. They didn't have efficient answers to it. But for the third one, you actually feel actively bad playing it or holding it in hand. So by running 2, we're still having a good chance of finding it. And of course, we can still tutor with Lyrial, while also we're not able to kind of brick as much, right, as 3 copies did. So 2 copies is a sweet spot for me. I think it felt very good. And then we ran 1 copy of Genesis Dragon Reborn. So effectively, we're running 2 copies before. There were too many game states where I was drawing 2 and I was like, this is terrible. Now, I don't actually mind 2 copies of Genesis Dragon that much, in the sense that, like, there's a lot of times where if you only run 1 copy, you don't see it when you need to. And if you run 2 copies, you always see it, right? But sometimes you see it more often than you need to. I think one copy is an acceptable kind of middle ground, especially because you're still running 3 copies of Lyria. And so you will kind of see this more often than the 1 copy would suggest. And the other card that we're adding is 3 copies of the Guru Cap, right? Or Odin. So basically, I think this card is essential in the current meta. Basically, helps you race against Sword. It's really important against decks like Control or Portal at the moment, because you need to kill them off quickly. And sometimes you just need to be able to clear something, swing at their face, and then basically keep up the pressure every single turn, right? So a Guru Cap, it can also be searched with Lyria, and you can also do the chain of Guru Cap, so Guru Cap, and then hopefully they're dead from that, right? So I think it's really important to kind of run a Guru Cap in the current meta. Obviously, this could change, but I think what I'm seeing on the ladder right now, I think it is essential to run 3. And so the final edition was 2 copies of Seasoned Merman. So what I realized is that a lot of game states at the moment, they are about board control, and being able to go very wide with Seasoned Merman on turn 5 is important. So whether or not you're evoing it and you're making 3 2/2 bodies in a 5/5, or alternatively you just ramp on 3 and you play this turn 5, whatever the case is, this card is very strong tempo, saves you HP, basically chunks the opponent's HP depending on the matchup. And so I don't want to run more than 2 copies of this, because I think when you run 3, you actually have to find opportunities to play this. But in an ideal game state, you actually don't have time to play this, right? So basically, turn 5 is the best time you can play it, maybe even turn 6. But then afterwards, you only want to play it if, like, for instance, you're going wide and you're baiting out removal, or it's going to be a longer game, or alternatively, you need healing from Neptune, right? So 2 copies seems perfect to me. I'm seeing when I need to. I'm not seeing too many copies of this, so this feels like an optimal ratio to me. And so that is basically my current iteration. I did do a bit of research in terms of the other lists within Beyond, and this is where I felt like I had the best amount of balance between, you know, what type of win condition I want, what type of survivability I want, and also the matchup spread in general against current meta. And so before, I thought Soulcraft was basically unwinnable, but now playing this list, I actually think it's fine, if not even slightly favored, to be honest. So I actually don't really fear too many decks at the moment. I think maybe the worst deck is probably like Control Portal at the moment, but even that doesn't seem too bad. I mean, all the time it's going to come down to like how well they open, and whether I get enough ramp to basically flood the board with stuff like Garyu, because against that kind of matchup, you want to make sure that, you know, you're actually abusing the fact that you have more play points, and so they can't use kind of their 6 play points to basically wipe your entire board, right? So I will go through a bunch of replays, and then hopefully that'll give you an idea of how to pilot the deck. Okay, so first game is Soulcraft against Dragoncraft, so we are going second. And so typically I would say this was a bad matchup, but after the changes to the deck list, I feel decent about it. So we want to just mulligan for early game drops, and also Liu Feng is a great option in terms of, like, you know, contesting board and ramping at the same time, so we keep that. And so this is an ideal opener for us. They're playing Quick Blader while we have Call of the Megalorca, and we have another 2-drop in hand, right? So Call of Megalorca, we trade in, and so already we're kind of ahead. There's no like real way for them to punish this. And so they play 2-1, and effectively our next play is we play Call of the Megalorca, we swing into it, and we do 2 damage to face. I think chip damage against Sword is not bad, especially the fact that we are running 3 copies of Odin as well. And we want to be able to put them on the clock, so they can't just like, develop their win con without considering our win con at all. And so here they play Octorus, we just play the ward and we swing 2 damage. We don't think it's very easy for him to clear this, to be honest. Like, sure, he can probably clear this and swing 3 damage to face, but we don't really care, because if he does that, we Liu Fang trade over and swing another 3 damage to his face, and he'll be on 13, right? And at that point, it'll be pretty hard for him to play the game. So we don't mind going to 16 that much if that is the case, but instead he clears our board, which I think is kind of smart, to be honest. And then we go Liu Fang, we Evo, we trade over, and then that's the end of our turn, right? So everything's going quite well here. Like, we're already at the 5 play point mark, and no matter what they do next turn, we can easily go Season Merman, or we can go Zoe, depending on what the actual play is. But they have a very slow turn here, so effectively it's just Tablet of Tribulation. We can do whatever we want here, right? I think there's no real bad play, to be honest. Let's see what we do anyways. So here, I think we just decide to go for the ramp. And of course, if you just look at the composition of our hand, right, we really do want to just go Gary next turn. And so you can see here, like, basically in this type of situation, especially with him kind of using all of his loot like this instead of fusing it, it does create a situation where, like, we actually feel relatively confident in terms of, like, evoing Gary to him next turn, and then not getting super punished for that, right? So you can see here, like, I think before this turn started, we had a look at, like, how many cards he played, and you can see he used 1 billion loot. So we kind of already know, like, he's not capable of basically creating, like, a 4 AoE option. So obviously we just get Gary, right? And then we just push face. And I'm not even sure he can out this because of the fact that he didn't fuse properly, and his hand is literally too big now. Yeah, it's literally too big. So even if he tries to fuse everything, he can't out it, and so we just kill him. But to be honest, even if he did have like 4 AoE, it would have still been a hard game for him, I think. So that's game 1. Alright, so next up we've got Dragoncraft against, I think this was Control Portal. But of course you don't really know in the mulligan phase which deck it is, so you kind of have to mulligan as if it could be either. So I think we only keep Phylene. Now Phylene you always keep going first, basically. It doesn't really matter whether or not like they've got like a Puppets or not. Basically you want to make sure that you don't let them play their 3/3 for free, and this is only a real way you can accomplish that. So yeah, we play Phylene just for tempo. It's perfectly fine in a lot of matchups to do this. And so here he goes Lobster Puppeteer. I think arguably we're meant to trade here. I can't remember if I went face. No, we traded here. Very good. Very, very good. And we just play this for tempo because again, we don't really know what it's playing, and this hand is really dead. Like, it looks so bad. But fortunately, it looks like it's playing controls, so we are able to kind of take advantage of that, kind of build a board that's quite wide and swing 1. And we know this is literally never going to die because it's got barrier. And so the worst thing that could happen here is probably if he goes like Lishana, but like doesn't have enough play points really, and not to mention like at least 2 of our cards will live. But if he goes Gilnelis, full clears, okay, whatever. We don't really care. So here, I think we just go see the Merman. And so you can see this is one of those matchups, right, where all you really want to do is go wide. And you already know, like, they want to play Lishana, but when you go this wide, it's actually kind of awkward. Like, they can only clear 2 cards, and then you'll be able to swing 4 damage to face anyway. And that's assuming they even have Lishana, right? So instead, in this situation, what he's doing is just clearing the board, which is actually quite impressive, to be honest, right? Like, Stonebreaker is quite a strong card, but here we still have to do whatever we want, right? So I think, given the makeup of our hand here, it is just correct to kind of just go 7 damage to face, because if you look at this, like, who cares? It's just 2 damage, right? And then basically, at this point, like, whatever he plays, whatever, like, we got 7 damage in, like, there's no real punish for it, right? And we have 2 Odin to follow up. And so here he plays, like, his Odin or / Agree Cap, and he clears it, and he evos, and he does billion damage to us. And so, one thing to notice, like, is when you play this deck, you need to, like, have a look at kind of, like, the 2-turn lethals. So, like, here, like, all you need to do is you just need to count the board, and it's like, okay, cool. So he's got 4 damage on board. If he plays Odin, then the maximum damage he has is 11, we're on 12. So who cares, right? Like, we know with this hand, we can't play a long game anymore, so we're just going to race him. And so I just clear the board, Evo, 7 damage to face, right? Doesn't have healing, he's dead. Or if he doesn't have 2 wards, he's dead, right? And so it's not really that easy for him to have that. And so here he just plays another Odin, he does 11 damage, and we already calculated this is not lethal, and we've got an Odin to kind of follow up and get lethal. So yeah, it's not even close. Unironically, it's not even close, right? So we played to our win con, they didn't have an out, we win, okay? So a lot of games come down to this. You just have to gamble sometimes. So next up, we have another Soulcraft game. So again, I thought Soulcraft was a hard matchup, but the more I play it, the more I think it's winnable from like the Dragoncraft side. So here we obviously mulligan everything. Like you don't keep Neptune even though it's a one-off to improve the matchup. We can obviously search for it with Lyrio later, so it's not the biggest deal. We need to make sure we don't take too much chip damage. And so Phylene is usually quite great. We don't really coin out of 2-drops unless we have 2 2-drops, generally speaking. So here we're most likely just playing Phylene unless we top into another 2-drop. But we don't, so we just play this, which is fine. Now here is a little bit difficult if he has like, you know, Octrus or something like that, but instead he's got a pretty weak opener, so only taking 2 chip damage, which is acceptable in my opinion. So here is just the Ocean Rider, which is great top deck, and then we just trade in. So now it's kind of difficult for them to clear this 1-1 on the board, and then next turn we can Liu Feng Evo over his Octrus, and then we push 1 damage through. It was pretty good for us, to be honest, right? It's a great situation to be in. And so on the following turn, of course, we trade over, we push 1 damage. And so it's not the greatest like kind of situation for the solo player. It's not easy to clear both and also pressure our face, which is exactly what we're looking for here. So Congregate of Dissipation, obviously this does out everything, but it doesn't push face damage, importantly, right? And so we're not scared at all about the situation. It doesn't matter. We're at a very healthy health total right now, 18 HP. So here we just coin out Willness. So this is an example, right, where we just want to make it kind of difficult for him. Like, you have to have the out. And so I think there was potentially an argument to actually Evo this. But it looks like his hand is totally dead, right? He just doesn't have an out to Willness, so he's just trying to race us, make it a little bit uncomfortable for us. He must literally just not have anything, right? And again, this is why Willness is so strong, right? Sometimes they just literally do not have the out. And so you can see here again, this is like the 2-turn principle, right? Are they able to kill me next turn? No? Okay, cool. Then instead we do this. And so no matter what he does, we know we have lethal next turn, right? Because he has to use all of his resources to clear, which means that we are guaranteed to get the damage to kill him, right? Like there's no way for him to clear this while healing, generally speaking. And so this means that no matter what he does, even if he could clear Willness, and he does actually because he uses Octrus, but even if he could clear it, right? We don't care. And we know this maximum damage he could have done was limited to this. He was never able to kill us. It wasn't close. And so yeah, we just win. And we could have used Gary Superior to win as well. And then next up is a Havencraft game. So can't remember how this game went actually. Hopefully this isn't the game where I just kind of sacked him with the top deck is Zero Fred. I think it wasn't though, we'll find out. So usually we keep Phylene and Ramp. So Phylene, you want this basically to clear like the inevitable kind of Grimnir play on turn 3. So yep, this is best curve option. So even if it's Grimnir, we clear it. So yeah, everything's good here. I think he actually coins it out here, which is probably indicative of a pretty bad hand, but he does save HP. Fine, so we trade it, we play Ocean Rider. Now we have 3-3 on the board. So again, it's kind of hard for him. He might take a lot of damage next turn, depending on what he does. But it's just another Grimnir, so here we're probably just going to Mega Lorca, trade in, and swing 2 damage to face. And I think here we even play Lyria here. And I think the reason we do this one here is because, number one, even if he has Marwyn, it's not easy to clear. Number two, our hand is already quite well developed. So basically, we have the Guru caps already, so we don't really need this to search anything. And plus, this will probably give us more damage over the long run anyway. And because of the way like the deck works, like we know that this is going to get a lot of value through. So here we just swing 1 damage, we Evo this, swing over Ramp, and now we're basically set up for Odin for the next 2 turns in a row. And then hopefully we draw into at least another Storm option, and then we can close the game out from there. So here, basically, he just continues kind of, stacking his crest. So we just banish this, and then we Evo and push 3 damage, and then 4 damage. So now you can see he's at 11 HP. And it's already not really that easy for him. So Doze is great for him because he's able to kind of pop everything and deal some damage to us. So, okay, whatever, who cares, right? So here we take, whatever, we take some chip damage. I just go 6/6 on the board. Now again, we don't care, right? Like the 6/6 is whatever, because if he swings with this, he loses his crest effect. So we feel pretty comfortable with just going 8 damage to face, and we're just going, okay, do your worst, like, what I mean. And here he can only heal for 3, and so even though you can clear the board, he's dead, right? We just Evo Forte for the game. This is how like a lot of these matchups tend to go, because they just don't have that burst healing from Benison anymore, so like a lot of your damage just sticks, and they don't really have lethal threat on you. Alright, last game for the night. So basically, you will notice that like I've actually been working backwards from my win streak, so these were all part of my 7 win streak. But anyway, so this one is Runecraft versus Dragoncraft. So against Rune these days, I just assume that it's very likely to be basically Dirt Rune. So against Dirt Rune, you just want to get Ramp, right? Because if you get Ramp and Willness, it's very hard for them to answer this. I think this game was a little bit of a copium game. I think I could have played better, but kind of hard to say. So we'll start with Phylene. So Phylene to kind of answer his 2/2. It's most likely going to get traded into, but I mean whatever, it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter how much chip damage they get on you. It only matters how much chip damage you get on them. Okay, so Dragon Sign. So now on 5. Hopefully we're drawn to another ramp, but if not, it's fine. It might just be a Galmi angle. There's very rarely anything else here, I think. But yeah, I mean, the tempo from this deck is not really that scary, so I don't really care. But yep, we just Galmi, we clear it. And so, like, especially here, where, like, 5/5 is, like, not particularly easy to clear, like, because all of their damage is, like, 4 damage pings. And then even, like, if they have the 5 Playboy one, it's 5/5, so who cares? And then chip damage doesn't matter in this matchup, like I mentioned. So here, we are basically just going to Evo this. And so the moment is actually surprisingly good in the Dirt Rune matchup, because basically if you go wide, they don't actually have that many ways to clear it. Like, they're never going to want to use, like, Stage Light to AoE 4 here. So instead, like, they have to use their Evos, and that's totally fine with us. Like, they're not pushing any more damage. Like, it's not even that big, and it ends their turn, so they just have 5/5. Now, it is a little scary, because, like, they have so much dirt, so effectively, they could do some crazy stuff in terms of, like, Lantern later. So we have to play Willness here, because it's the last turn we can do this. Basically, if we wait any longer, they can coin out for the Lantern. So yeah, we just play this. We make it difficult for him to out it. Now, it's really annoying because there's like this Japanese player, I think he recently got like rank 1 with Runecraft and beyond, and he just runs 1 copy of this, so all the guys are playing 1 copy. And it just coincidentally hits us, because I'm pretty sure they only run it because of like Wilbert, and then like basically it's just coincidentally good here. If they don't have that, it's so hard for them to out, and we just win the game on the spot. Even so, we don't lose anyway, so here, I think we just opted for this, and I thought like, okay, whatever, you had Velharia, there's no way you have Lilanthem too, and even if you do, like, we didn't Evo this. Now, there was an argument, I think, that we could have like Super Evo this, I think, but yeah, in the end, like basically, it's just a bit of a blowout that they have the 1 copy of Velharia. They don't run more than 1. They don't mulligan for it. Like, if anything, they're supposed to play it early if they do like hit it in the early hands. So it's just unlucky that they always seem to have it, but it is what it is. But they did whiff. So basically here, I think my argument here was basically I wanted to go wide to make it harder for him to let Lantern. You see here, you only has one Super Evo left. So once the Super Evo is gone, we are really like in smooth sailing here, right? So here, I mean, Neptune is just great in terms of like making it harder for them to lethal us, clearing the board, being sort of wide. I will say that it is like a little rough if he does Lantern us here, but on the plus side, it's like, it's not like the most obvious Lilanthem, right? And also it shuts him off from being able to use Lilanthem OTK, because he won't have any Super Evos left. So honestly, we feel fine in this situation. It's not like the smoothest, but whatever. Like, we already ate like the possibility of him basically like, having the Velharia on curve. So yeah, it is what it is. So here we just play Genesis when we hit him. And the reason we do this is like, look, he can't get a 2-turn lethal. There's no burst healing in the game. Like, even if he plays Norman, he can't really Super Evo into this. Like, this is a very, very safe Genesis Dragon. And by cashing this in, he has to be, like, really cognizant of stuff like a Guri Cap and, like, Gary, for instance. So, typically, when you can cash in a free Genesis Dragon, it's usually correct. Because this thing is massively statted. Like, 9-10. It's not easy. This isn't even Evo, and it's huge, right? And so here, he does feel the need that he has to heal up. And, what if he gets a ward here? No, I think it was heal, right? Yeah, he just heal. And so he made a slight misplay, so he should be automatically first and then traded to get 1 damage, but it doesn't matter. Obviously, he's not racing us anyway, so it's not really that big of a deal. And so here, I think we just go wide again, right? So here we just go wide. Now we know he has no super evos left, which means that once we trade in and push, he probably has no outs. If he has no outs, we just win next turn. And I think he might even concede here. I think he probably just concedes here, because he has no super evo left. So there's just no outs. Yeah, and so we win, even though he has Vilharia for our 7 play point bonus, right? If he doesn't have that, think about how much easier that game would be. So yep, that's pretty much it for today's video on Dragoncraft. So I hope you enjoyed it. Basically, I think this deck is really cracked. I think if I had more time to play this, I probably would hit beyond rank with this, but I just don't have time for it. So it is what it is, but I wanted to make sure everyone here is able to basically abuse this broken deck. Basically, it's not really that hard to play compared to the other decks. So basically, the other decks are strong too, probably stronger than Dragon, but the skill requirement is a lot higher, right? So for the average player, which I'm assuming a lot of people who are watching my channel are, and I suppose I'm also an average player, play Dragoncraft, right? It's just as strong, and you don't need as much skill, so it's a perfect combination. So basically, I do recommend this deck. It's a lot of fun to play, and basically, you know, it's always great when they can't out your bonus, and then boom, 10 damage to face, boom, 11 damage to face, etc., right? And I've also managed to, you know, work out the kinks to it, so I think this deck is really, really strong right now, and so I've like basically made it so it doesn't really have many bad matchups anymore. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And I also write a guide for this on my Patreon. So I don't know when that guide will go live, but have an eye out for the Patreon for when that does go out. And that's pretty much it. So if you liked today's video, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.